Welcome back. This time we're talking about Alien Covenant, the sixth film in the Alien franchise and the third to be directed by Ridley Scott, who gave us the original film back in 1979. Now, before I get into the film itself, I want to give you a little bit of history of me and this franchise to kind of explain where I'm coming from as far as my thoughts on this latest movie. I actually never watched any of the films until I was in college. Honestly, I started the first film a few times, and I actually stopped it every time because I was afraid the cat was going to get killed. And yeah, it's kind of lame maybe, but I just didn't want to see the cat die, and I was afraid it would, and this was before Wikipedia, so I couldn't look up to see what happened to the cat. So I never finished it. And then I got to college, and I met a friend, and he had the full four-film box set, and we sat down to watch it. And I asked him ahead of time, I said, does the cat die? And he said, no. So I said, okay, I will watch Alien. I did, and I was really glad because Alien is obviously a very good movie. I also really enjoyed Aliens, which was directed by James Cameron. And those two films are kind of different. The first film by Ridley Scott is this very suspenseful, contained sci-fi horror film, while Cameron's take on the franchise was more of a Cameron-esque action sci-fi horror film. And they both do their respective genres great justice, because those are both, to me at least, very, very enjoyable films. The third and the fourth one, they are what they are. Even the people involved with them aren't terribly enamored with them, so enough said there. And that was pretty much it with the franchise, unless you count the Alien vs. Predator films. I don't. Until 2012, when Ridley Scott returned with Prometheus. And that was a film I was looking forward to. It looked really cool in the trailers. And it was a movie that I found extremely underwhelming and disappointing. It was not helped by its marketing campaign, because those trailers are, to me, probably the second most spoiler-filled trailers I've ever seen, behind only Castaway, the Tom Hanks film where he was stuck on the island. The trailers for Prometheus ruined that movie for me. All of the revelations that were supposed to build the suspense, the Ridley Scott alien suspense side of the story, were all in the trailer. So I pretty much knew every step of the way what was going to happen in this movie up until the last 10 minutes or so. Even if that wasn't the case, I'll say it still probably wouldn't have been a great movie, because the script, to me, in a lot of ways, was a mess. The Xenomorphs are a character that I don't think needs an explanation, and a lot of Prometheus was trying to show the genesis of the Xenomorphs. The Xenomorphs are just these alien killing machines. We don't need to know where they came from. The fact that they're just out there and we don't know where they came from is part of what makes them so scary. So pretty much on every level, other than some of the performances, Prometheus was just a fail for me. So I'm saying all of that to point out that I went into Alien Covenant with little to no expectations. I honestly wasn't even really looking forward to it. Every time I watched the trailers, I was less concerned about what the movie actually looked like and more concerned about whether or not the trailers were once again going to ruin the movie. And although not nearly on the scale of Prometheus, they did ruin some important moments in the movie for me, and I'll get to that a little bit later. This review will be spoiler-free up until a very certain point, and I'm going to point out, I said, okay, this is the end unless you've seen the movie and want to hear a little bit of spoiler stuff, because there's a couple things I want to talk about, but not enough to do a full-blown video. And one of the things I do want to talk about is how the trailers did ruin a couple of the moments. But as far as this movie goes, I think it's a very well-made movie. Ridley Scott knows this genre, knows sci-fi films, knows how to make a high-quality sci-fi film. So from a production standpoint, the special effects are phenomenal. The gore is very, very intense, extremely bloody. When people die in this movie, they do not die well. There are no easy deaths in this movie. The set designs are great. Some of the characters, there's, in a movie like this, you're always going to have a few of the characters that get more development than the rest, and the rest are essentially cannon fodder. And that's just what we get here. But the actors that had some of the more memorable roles are good. We have Katherine Waterston, Michael Fassbender, Danny McBride, who really actually surprised me. I'm not a huge Danny McBride fan, but I liked him in this movie. And then Billy Crudup also plays one of the main characters. As far as the story goes, and let me say before I go into this, a lot of the marketing was sort of playing this up as sort of the bridge between Prometheus and the original Alien, since Prometheus was a prequel. I will say, going in, you really do need to know that this is much more a sequel to Prometheus than it is a prequel to Alien. I did not rewatch Prometheus because based on what I had seen in the trailers, it didn't look like there was going to be a lot of connection. And this might be a mild spoiler. I'm going to be very careful what I say, so don't worry. But knowing what happened in Prometheus is important for several of the story arcs of this movie. All I ended up doing right before the movie started, while I was in the theater, I went on Wikipedia and read the plot synopsis of Prometheus just in case, since I had not had the opportunity to rewatch the movie, and I was glad I did because that is important. As I said already, this is a much more a sequel than a prequel. But as far as the story goes, we meet this new group of characters. They are the crew of this colony ship. There's like 16 or so of them. They're couples. That was actually played up much more in the trailer. There's a line that talks about how they were all couples. That line's not actually in the movie itself. But as you watch it, it becomes pretty clear that's the case, at least for most of the characters. Some of them die off so quickly I couldn't really figure out who or what their respective partner was. But in any event, they're on this colony mission, and something happens to the ship, and the crew is woken up early and has to deal with this situation, and they become aware that there is a planet nearby that might be even better than the one that they were going to. So they decide to investigate this planet. They show up, and bad things happen. I don't really want to give away anything else. The trailers, as I said, did ruin some moments. They did not ruin the story like they did in Prometheus. They just ruined some of the suspenseful moments that would have been much better had we not seen them in the trailer. But that's essentially the movie. They arrive on this planet and bad things happen and people start dying. And as I said, they do not die easy. This is a very well-made movie. The special effects are great. If you're into the gore special effects are really good. The blood does not look CG. That's a problem these days with a lot of movies having very obviously CG blood. That was not the case in this movie. The blood looks real. What happens to people is very disturbing. And the story, as it sort of is revealed throughout this movie, is actually kind of interesting. Like I said, I went in this movie not expecting to like it. And for the vast majority of this movie, I did enjoy it. You've got interesting xenomorph type character things. You've got a few interesting characters played by the actors I've already mentioned, and then you have very cool deaths, if you're into that. The last 20 minutes for me really just killed it. I'm going to be very careful what I say here, but there's some things that happen, and there's one storyline where it's like trying to set up somewhat of a twist, and it's so obvious what they're doing. It was almost a surprise because I was thinking, wow, this is so dumb. They can't actually be doing this. And then they did. And I just went, oh. And the ending ruined it so much for me. Looking back, I just go, man, so much was wasted to get us to this very disappointing ending. And it really hurt my overall enjoyment of the movie. So as an Alien movie, again, you've got good special effects, you've got some good gore, you've got some new xenomorph designs that we haven't seen before, and that's essentially it. The story has some interesting elements to it that are ultimately wasted by this poor ending. So overall, I didn't feel like the movie really gave us much. This is, even if you don't count Alien 3 and 4, this is like the fourth Alien movie, and at this point, I want more from this. I will admit, if you watch a lot of my videos, I'm going to sound very hypocritical here, because I was saying basically the opposite with the Fast and Furious 8. That was a movie that essentially just gives us more of the same. But in that case, I enjoyed it more, and if that movie had as poor an ending as, to me, this one does, I would not have said that. So that's the difference. If the ending had fulfilled the potential of the story that we got up until that point, I would probably be saying something very different right now. Because I went in with low expectations. It was exceeding those expectations greatly right up until the end. And then we have what we get. There are some good suspenseful moments. A few of them weren't actually ruined by the trailers. There's one scene in particular in the trailer that really kind of just tells you what the last 20 minutes are going to be like. You don't know how they're going to get there, but once certain things happen, and if you remember this scene in the trailer, the whole middle of this movie, you know, okay, I'm not sure what's going to happen when they get there, but they're going to be here near the end. And they were, and I was like, wow, that 5-second scene had not been in the trailer, I would have probably enjoyed a lot more of the movie. It still wouldn't have helped the story issues, but it would have helped the suspense of the story a lot more, because the whole point of having a suspenseful movie like this is you don't know where it's leading. When you know at least where it's going to be in its near end moments, it just doesn't work. So to wrap this up, Alien Covenant, well-made movie, an interesting story that does not fulfill its potential. A few interesting characters, some very solid performances from the leads, and if you really, really like Alien, definitely go see this. If you thought Prometheus was overwrought and just didn't make sense and just didn't work, this is definitely an improvement over that. With the exception of the ending, I really found myself enjoying this movie. If it had just nailed the landing, I would say, hey, this was a great movie, go watch it. I can't say that. So as long as you can take high intensity gore and like these type of movies, it's probably worth watching. It's just is not nearly as good as I thought it was going to be based on the first 2/3 of the movie. So that's my review of Alien Covenant. I did mention earlier I was going to talk a few things that are spoilers, so if you have not seen the movie, this is where I recommend you stop the video, because I'm going to be talking about things specifically at the end that will essentially ruin the movie for you. So if you haven't seen it, stop now. That is your warning. Okay, now I want to talk a few things about the ending as well as some of the things that were spoiled in the trailer. There are two specific things in the trailer. One is we see the lander ship blow up and someone on fire walking out. I believe both of these scenes were in the Red Band trailer. And I'll say up front, I did not seek out any trailer for Alien Covenant. I honestly tried to avoid them because of my fear that they were going to pull the Prometheus. The only trailers I watched, the only time I watched them, were in front of other movies. And the first trailer I saw for Alien Covenant was the Red Band trailer in the theater. I don't remember in front of what movie it was. It may have been Free Fire. I don't know. But regardless, so we see someone on fire. So as soon as they're on the ship, and this was actually something I had forgotten, so it really didn't affect my my enjoyment of the movie. But once it happened, I went, "Oh wow! If I had remembered that moment in the trailer, this would have ruined this whole sequence." Because we know they show in the trailer that she traps the other woman in the med lab, and then we see the ship blow up and a human walk in fire. So if you remember that scene, like I said, I did not, but if you remember that scene going in, you pretty much know how it's going to end. That ruins that whole sequence. The scene, however, that really, really spoiled the movie for me was the scene in the shower. This was definitely in the Red Band, where we see the two people in the shower, and the alien tail thing comes up, and the woman's splattered with blood. As soon as the lander ship blew up, we knew that there were and this was, I mean, that's an impactful scene. So that was one I definitely remembered. I remember being annoyed by it because A, once that scene starts, you know how it's going to end, and two, we know where one of the characters is going to die. Well, once the lander ship blows up, we know there's no showers on this planet. So that has to be on the colony ship. So we know, no matter what happens in this movie, at some point in time, they're going to get back to the colony ship, and there's going to be an alien creature on the colony ship. So the whole middle, where they're battling them in the alien city and all that, we know, and they're trying to get back, and they're getting on the little cargo ship, and they're killing the xenomorph, and all that happens. We know, no matter what happens in that scene, they're going to get back up to the colony ship, and there's going to be an alien on it. So it just killed a lot of the suspense. Now, my big issue that I kept saying, I did not like the ending, and that was David replacing Walter. They have this scene. It's so obvious that they cut away before we see who wins that fight. And the only reason they would do that is if David wins and replaces Walter. That's the only reason to do it. So we know, I mean, there's just almost no reason to believe anything else. That's David, and he is going to screw them over at some point in time. We know that is going to happen. So when it's revealed that it was him, I'm like, oh. Because like I said earlier, it's so stupid because it is so obvious. That's the only reason why I didn't think it was going to go that way, was it was so obvious that if they did that, it's so cliche. It's been done a gazillion times before, and it was just stupid. I don't use that word too often, but it was stupid. It's just so obvious. And then when it's revealed that was what happened, I'm like, oh. They went with the most cliche, obvious way to go about it. And I'm like, if you want the movie to have an ending where David ends up controlling the colony ship so you can have this Prometheus 3 and do the final connection to the original Alien, that's fine. That's kind of pretty much what I was expecting from the beginning, and one of the reasons why I wasn't overly enamored with going to see this, because I knew it was going to probably end badly, because it has to somehow end with Alien happening and no one knowing that xenomorphs exist. I knew that's basically what was going to happen, but if you're going to do it, find a much more original way of doing it. And that's why it just ruined it for me, because I'm just like, no, that is such lazy storytelling. And maybe other people won't find it as annoying and just detrimental to their overall enjoyment of the movie, but for me it was, and it really just ruined the movie for me. So that's my rant on Alien Covenant. And now if you've seen the movie, I'm hoping you have if you're this far into the video, because I just spoiled the whole thing for you. What did you think about it? And being careful so there's not too many spoilers in the comments. Just say, did that twist event, was it as bad for you as it was for me? You could just say that, and just be careful to avoid spoilers in the comments, at least for a few weeks or so, unless you're seeing this video in the future, and then you can say whatever you want. As always, you can subscribe to my channel, check out some of my other reviews, and until next time, I'll see you at the movies.